now. Great. All right. So let's just, how much of the vaginal stuff did you hear?
That's a great spot to start right there, by the way. Yeah, I heard that, and I heard you kind of talking about how Biollante kind of represents femininity and like the femininity of nature.
Yeah.
I didn't hear any more than that. I don't know if you were going to go on to say that Godzilla is presented as more masculine, but that's kind of what I assume.
Yeah, exactly. It's a line of thought that I kind of agree with, especially in their final battle. There's just this. If you're looking at those two lines, then it's kind of that fatalism, that idea that Godzilla does win ultimately, and it's just the idea that this human perversion of nature and destruction, the destruction of nature, will ultimately be humanity's prevailing mode over the beauty and the femininity of the nature that Biollante represents.
Yeah, I think like I read it the same way, even in the subtitles, and I wish I understood Japanese dialogue better to know how accurate the subtitles were, but they referred to Biollante as she and Godzilla as he. And even while I was watching it, I was like, why, what's the reason for that different kind of like gendering of these different creatures? But I do think it reiterates the theme of the movie, like you're saying. And I think it's really interesting because, it seems like Biollante loses at the end, like it sort of disintegrates, and like you said, like the spirit of Erica and like these spores ascend into the heavens. But it almost kind of seems like a triumphant ending for Biollante as well. Like it's its body has been destroyed, but it's sort of just like is subsumed or whatever into the atmosphere. Like I feel like that's almost kind of like a victory in some way as well,
Yeah, so that's really interesting you bring up the ending. I had mixed feelings about the ending. I have mixed feelings because I don't mind unclear endings in movies. But in a Godzilla movie, I'm not used to that sort of ambiguity at an end. Like Godzilla ostensibly won, but didn't. Like he should have lost, really. He had that bacteria inside him. He just kind of fainted in the water. And Biollante itself, this was kind of a kind of critique I had about the story. Biollante to me never represented a true threat to humanity. It was a very stationary creature. Like it didn't really move from its spot. So I thought that just kind of lessened the stakes of the film. But.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it does kind of kill a couple of those secret agents or mercenaries or whatever in that like early like science lab or whatever. But yeah, then when it grows to like that epic height, assuming that humanity can just like stay away from it, it's probably going to be fine.
Right.
It's going to look kind of creepy, but it should be okay,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with you, and I know what you're saying. I mean, like the main reason I was okay with the ending is just because it looks amazing. Like this moment when like all the spores sort of like dissolve, and then we see these like gold, like little spheres kind of like float into the ether with like a superimposition of Erica, like the spirit of the dead girl, like rising to the heavens. I was like, I have no idea what's going on, and I am totally okay with that because it looks so amazing. It's like it's kind of jaw-dropping and so weird.
No, right. Which is why ultimately I think Godzilla versus Biollante stands on its own accord in the whole franchise. Like it's just shot with a sense of real artistry that is not usual for these movies.
Totally. And it, as I'm sure we'll talk about, that kind of contrasts with a pretty campy vibe. Like a lot of the dialogue is pretty ridiculous. The performances are like pretty stilted. As we talked about, the story makes no sense. So yeah, I mean, like there is a sense of artistry, even though like most of the movie is kind of ludicrous at the same time, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get to our breakdown then. Before that, I want to tell you about banditsemporium.com. Yes, banditsemporium.com is the official t-shirt partner of Camp Kaiju. My buddy Lucas, he designs the Camp Kaiju line of t-shirts, but the website has a whole range of other cool designs. You can get 10% off now by using promo code Camp Kaiju. And as they say, we sell shirts. That's not what Camp Kaiju says. We say, bring on the campiness. So in that vein, Matt, what did you like about this movie specifically?
Well, we've already talked about the crazy plot, which is totally unpredictable. Like it really, has this weird kinetic energy to it where you don't know what's going to happen from one scene to the next. I think like you can, like viewers could take that to mean whatever they want. If they think it's sort of just like a ridiculous plot without any substance, that's maybe valid. Like maybe they're just kind of, I don't know, like what the intentionality was of the filmmakers, the writers and director. But intentionality doesn't really matter all that much. I think you can draw like a lot of really compelling conclusions out of the story. I think, as you mentioned, Vincent, and as the students of that paper wrote, it could be a metaphor for environmentalism. I think it could be like an allegory for trying to overcome your grief, the loss of a loved one. I think like one of my favorite things personally is really an aesthetic thing. I love the computer graphics in this movie, and I'm not talking about sort of like CGI that we would see in later monster movies, but like blatantly fake late 80s, like really pixelated like computer layouts. Like that's actually the first thing we see in the movie when there are all these like different alarm systems that go off, like
Cool.
like the first alarm if there's like some kind of like indirect evidence of Godzilla, the second alarm if there's like a sighting away from Japan or whatever. And like all these different alarms are like presented to us through this like computer readout, which looks like it's from the late 80s. Like it's very dated in like a really strange, kind of beautiful way. And then like later on, there are various scenes where there's sort of like the military is like planning out their attack on Godzilla. And there are these weird sort of like computer generated shots of like their, like where things are located, like how they're going to approach Godzilla. But again, it's sort of like these very digital, like early digital, like lines and shapes and stuff like that. So it's just like this really kind of crazy looking early digital aesthetic, which is, kind of summarizes the weirdness of the movie as a whole, I think.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wrote my own notes. Some of the things I loved was those aesthetics. The camera work is chaotic at times. The film sort of has like a really frenetic pace, which is really in line with this element of action, spy, espionage stuff going on. The director himself, I read, had always wanted to direct a James Bond movie, and I see that completely in this Godzilla movie. It's a lot of fun. But even like with the monster, like how he shoots how he'll shoot Godzilla, there's a lot of close-ups. So even these like giant monsters, which you might find more traditionally pictured with like a wide shot, he gets right up in their faces, and I think it just enhances the immediacy of the action, and also just I don't know, it just creates an intimacy with this monster that I really enjoy. And I love the animation, like you said. I like what do you think about the music?
It's I mean, like that's in my campy category, to be honest. I like it. There's a really great moment where like we cut to, I think it's Osaka, when it's clear that Godzilla is heading towards Osaka because there's a nuclear plant there and he kind of needs to like restore his energy. And it like very abruptly cuts to like a pop song, like a late 80s pop song, and you have no idea why. It's very jarring. And then it's like kind of explained that there's like a concert going on in Osaka and like everybody needs to leave the auditorium or whatever. But I mean, like the campiness of that song really isn't that far off from the music as a whole, you know?
Yeah, I really had mixed feelings about the music. I felt when it worked really well. Like the score specifically, the orchestration.
Mhm.
There were some really, I thought it was effective in building tension, and the direction itself, I thought was really effective in conveying tension, building that. But there were, maybe it's because I've watched Jaws or like other movies scored by John Williams so much. I wish I could play a sample of the music from Biollante, because there were just there were themes where I was like, I feel like you're just riffing on John Williams at this point.
Yeah, totally. I heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah, there was like a dun 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 dun, which I was
Right.
like, that's in Jaws. There was also some sort of sweeping, triumphant crescendo that sounded like the Superman score. Da, 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 da. I can't do it, but anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know what you mean. Yeah. And that seems to be played at sort of like inappropriate moments sometimes when like
Yes.
it shouldn't really be triumphant, you know? Like I feel like there's a moment where oh, what is it? Like there, yeah, I mean like Godzilla just like destroys half of a city or something, and then like that triumphant music kind of like plays at the end of that scene. It's like, what, should we be happy about this? I don't know. Yeah,
Music
so
was
it's
a
just,
little haphazard, but
yeah.
it worked for me.
Yeah, totally.
um Bad stuff. I thought the beginning established some human characters really well and established their relationships. But as the movie went on, I felt like I lost the thread of the character, the humans themselves, as just naturally it began to focus on the monsters. But I was like, you teased me with like a really compelling human element.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I was also fuzzy on how Erica's spirit was transferred to the rose in the first place. It just seemed like a leap in logic that wasn't explained.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. Not to mention the fact that there's like this you know, like school for psychics, and like all these kids that are there are psychics, and like the how this girl can communicate with Godzilla, like none of that really makes any sense.
But I love the fact that there's just a school of little kids learning to be psychics.
Yeah, with a movie like this, I feel like you can't demand logic too much, but I do agree that like, yeah, I mean like the Erica spirit thing, uh you know, it's supposed to be kind of like the emotional kind of like um core of the movie,
Yeah.
but it is pretty ridiculous, so it's really hard to be like too engaged with Dr. Shimaguchi, I think is his name, his like kind of what he's going through, because it doesn't like, yeah, how was his daughter's spirit like transferred to Biollante? It makes no sense at all.
Right. And then they kind of forget that her spirit is in Biollante when it's convenient, when it's time to be like, oh, it needs to be a monster now. And the only explanation is the psychic, the main psychic woman. She's like, oh, Erica's not in there anymore. Like,
Right.
how?
Why?
Why? I don't know the
Yeah.
rules of this psychic world.
Yeah, yeah. There probably aren't any rules, I suppose. I think like in a way that could be kind of a good thing, because there's sort of like, you know, again, like you can read some pretty crazy interpretations into all this stuff. And I think like in the character of Biollante, like we can, you know, there's a struggle within this creature for like the good soul, the innocent soul of Erica, and like
Yeah.
the sort of like monstrous
God dang it.
into that,
Whoa.
a lot of different themes of like maybe not nature versus nurture exactly, but like how do you sort of like come to grips with like the warring sort of aspects of like your soul or your nature, you know, if there's good and bad within you, as there is within all of us, like what side ultimately wins out. There's some of that in Biollante, even though, you know, it's kind of a leap to come to that interpretation, but I think it's there if you want to.
Yeah, I think I would like to see a version of this movie. And sorry, Matt, I do want to wrap up at some point just because my internet keeps being spotty.
Sure.
I think there's an interesting version of this movie where Biollante, because I love the design so much and I love the idea of this creature so much, but there's a version of this movie where Biollante itself is given more character, to explain just that sort of struggle that we're told it is having within itself. The spirit of Erica versus these Godzilla cells. But we're told that rather than being shown that by the monster. You know what I mean? God dang it.
And then come back. Sorry. Are you there?
Yeah, I am. Okay.
Okay.
I'll just repeat what I said.
Okay.
There's a more interesting story, I think, because I love the design of Biollante so much, and I love the idea of this internal struggle between Erica's spirit and Godzilla's cells. But I would like to be told less about that struggle by these third-party characters and shown that struggle in the characterization of Biollante itself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's kind of the cardinal rule of cinema, show, don't tell. And this movie breaks it all the time.
But I know it's tough because it's an inarticulate monster. But
yeah,
but maybe in a newer version, if this was remade today, there's a way they can get around that.
Ooh, I really hope somebody makes that remake.
I hope this monster comes back, like in these new Godzilla movies, because I think Biollante deserves another movie. It's such a cool creature.
Yeah, totally agree. I would love that.
I don't get the name though.
No, me either. The doctor comes up with it. He just randomly is like, oh yeah, that's Biollante. He just comes up with the name seemingly impulsively. I don't know what it means. Yeah.
No idea. If anyone out there can shed light on that, like why couldn't you have called it like
it sounds cool.
What?
Call it sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool. But like, why was that your first name and not like Rosasaurus or Erica Rex or I don't know, something a bit more obvious.
I do like Erica Rex. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thanks. I'll trademark it. Okay. Downright campy. I got 3 things. I got Biollante ascending into stardust or whatever with Erica's photo, like clearly the headshot of the actress superimposed onto those spores. Cracked me up, even though it's like a really poignant moment. There's a line in the beginning of the film. Dr. Shiragami is talking to somebody and he talks about what some of these other scientists are doing. I forget the context, but the line is, yes, I've heard your father's project and how he wants to preserve the sperm of Nobel Prize winners for the production of future geniuses. I had to pause the film and go back to reread those subtitles.
Me too. I love that moment. Yeah. Because that's also like shortly after we find out about, like, first of all, Erica's spirit and the Rose, experiment. And also when we find out about the psychic who can communicate with Godzilla. And then like suddenly like now there's this other experiment where we're like preserving the sperm of like Nobel Prize winning scientists. Like this plot is just all over the place. It's great.
Such a random line.
Yeah, I love it.
And there's one fun moment where one of these soldiers, there's like a cohort of soldiers, Japanese soldiers that we're following. They're likable dudes. They're commando types. And he's got a bazooka and he's on like on the top floor of a skyscraper and he shoots this bacteria bazooka into Godzilla. And the commando, he turns around, he starts packing his bags and he's like, all right, job well done. But the people on his radio are saying, no, dude, turn around. Godzilla is coming for you. And it's just a really funny shot because you see him in the foreground and behind him is Godzilla just slowly making his way towards him in the camera. It was a very comical moment that I had a good chuckle.
Me too. Yeah, I love that moment. How could you not hear Godzilla approaching the skyscraper that you're in, like 20 feet away? It's ridiculous.
That's just it. Godzilla's literally sneaking towards him.
Yeah, which seems pretty much impossible.
Yeah, it was those moments. It was a moment like that where the character of Godzilla himself endears you with his personality, which is much more relevant in the older like 60s Godzilla movies, but it's nice to see that in a newer one too.
Yeah.
Anyways, what do you got?
I think my number one campy thing has to be that the spy wearing the sunglasses. You kind of alluded to him earlier. It's yeah, it's such a ridiculous character. I mean, it is like an imitation of like a bad Bond villain, like you said before. Like maybe the director was trying to emulate a little bit, and like this actor's line readings especially are like just like the essence of camp. Like so, so bad they're good, so ridiculous they're like sublime. Like just there are several lines where he says like, "Oh damn, it's Godzilla." It's and like with that exact inflection, or in like various iterations of that. And you still like, there's a lot of like vagueness about like, is that guy Saradian? Is he Japanese? Like, who is he exactly? And like, who does he work for? Just I really loved it.
Totally. That was funny. And like, so some of these bad guys, they are played by Western actors, seemingly American actors. And they are the worst actors I've ever seen in a major motion picture. Like they don't even know how to deliver lines effectively. They're that bad.
Yeah, no, they're equally, yeah. I love those guys. And I'm pretty sure like the first time we see them, they're wearing bandanas with like the American flag on them.
Yes.
Also one of the best moments in the movie. It's so blatant. Like, don't trust these guys. They're Americans. Yeah, I love that. Subtlety is not this movie's strong suit.
It was awesome. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
It's so funny.
Okay. Let's go to our verdicts if you want.
Definitely. Should I start it off?
Sure, go for it.
I gotta be honest. I think this is the first time in doing Camp Kaiju where like talking about it has changed my opinion about the movie. Earlier I was gonna say, maybe historically significant or fun, but it doesn't stand the test of time. That's what my rating was gonna be before we talked about it tonight. I'm going to up that rating to there may be some antiquated moments, but overall it's great. It stands the test of time. This movie is so weird and trippy, and like it gives you the room to like interpret what you want out of it so much. I mean, I have to give it credit for that. So I got to boost my rating a little bit.
Fantastic. I'm going to give it one step higher. I'm going to say it is a timeless classic because I have to place it within the pantheon of Godzilla movies. And it's just, it's honestly rare to see a Godzilla movie this good in terms of artistry and tension and horror and thematic layers. It's got a lot going on in very, as you say, just really trippy aesthetics. So yeah, I'd recommend this to any newbie to Godzilla movies.
Me too, and I feel like I am a newbie, so I can attest to that. It's a great watch. Yeah,
I have to bring in a really bad Godzilla movie for you to watch, so you can suffer through it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have to at some point, but so far I love this amazing streak that we're on. These are all great.
Pretty good. Okay, I don't think we're gonna get to a Godzilla movie next time, but I don't know. What do you bring in next time?
Next time, I'm bringing the movie Colossal, starring Anne Hathaway. It's relatively recent, from 2016. I've never seen it, to be totally honest. I've wanted to for a long time. This plot just sounds, crazy to me. Like, it's like an American woman, seemingly kind of irresponsible, who finds out that she's like controlling this monster in South Korea. I'm just really excited to see this. I feel like hopefully there will be a lot of stuff to talk about. So that'll be our movie next time.
Fantastic. I think there will be. I saw it last year and I'm excited to revisit it. Yeah, I'm just excited to hear what you think about it.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, for better or worse, there'll be things to talk about, I'm sure.
Yes, there are. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks everyone out there. Please follow, like, subscribe, engage with Camp Kaiju on Instagram and wherever you podcast. We're coming to you 2 episodes a month, and we couldn't do it without you. So thanks a lot. And until next time, stay campy.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Matt, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about it now if you want to, right?
Oh, no,
Or would
no,
you
no.
rather